Mr. Cummings, on Thursday of last week, on page 168 of the transcript, Director Coit asked a question about whether high concentrated flow is more important than moderate concentrated flow. Mr. Rigler's answer, which I'll read in full, said, quote, "No, I don't," unquote. Do you agree with that?
I'm going to object to this line of questioning. I believe it's inappropriate to be reading portions of a transcript and asking this witness to comment on it. I don't believe that's how we proceed in these areas. It's direct testimony.
Although, isn't it containing direct statements about the particular maps that we're looking at?
I think it's questions about the different standards of how TNC does their mapping in terms of high or low concentrated flows, if he wants to get into that on redirect. But I think that was testimony that was in his original reports and stands as it is.
Isn't it a characterization of what's depicted?
I'd have to go back to see exactly what levels he was asking about, but his original figures that Mr. Rigler put in had those representations regarding 2 different concentration flows. Those were in his original testimony. They weren't changed by these figures that Mr. Elmer is asking about right now.
Chairperson, I think there are here probably 3 different reasons why this line of questioning is appropriate. First, Exhibit 210 came in belatedly. Under EFSB rules, Invenergy had an obligation to provide all exhibits 10 days before the hearing started. The hearing started on April 11th. Their deadline for submitting this was April 1st last year. There was nothing new in Mr. Cummings' testimony. That was all filed way before the final hearing started.
Right. Nevertheless, it is in evidence.
It came into evidence without objection from CLF, even though we were blindsided by it, even though Invenergy's ESS consultants used dishonesty and subterfuge to obtain the materials. And this line of questioning will also show that Mr. Rigler's testimony about Map 6 last week was substantially mistaken. We don't think that Mr. Rigler was deliberately lying, because I don't think he was, but he seriously misunderstood the TNC data. We now have a witness from TNC who can clarify for the board the nature and extent of Mr. Rigler's mistakes and misinterpretations. Last week, when this exhibit was sprung on us almost a year after the deadline, we didn't object to its coming in. But in fairness, we didn't object to any of Ms. Noonan's foundational questions to Mr. Rigler, walking him through every one of the maps and what they said and what they meant. In fairness, CLF should have the same opportunity.
I'm going to object to Mr. Elmer testifying. His characterizations are unfair. He had the opportunity to cross-examine Mr. Rigler. He chose not to. The exact question he's asking right now does not pertain to figure 6 that he's talking about. If he goes back to the transcript, it's a different figure that he's talking about. He's the one that's not being candid with this tribunal right now. I don't have a problem with these there are full exhibits, but I object to Mr. Elmer's testifying and characterizations of witnesses that he didn't even cross-examine last week.
I'm going to allow it.